Hello, Elizabeth here, and today I'm going to show you how I made this mermaid scale rhinestone tumbler with holographic blue glitter. Full disclosure, I did hit a few bumps in the road, and the way I got from point A to point B is a little unconventional. But I'm really happy with the end result, so I'm still going to show you my process, and hopefully the journey is a little smoother for you. I started with a stainless steel tumbler. I gave it a base coat of blue acrylic paint to match the blue glitter and give a nice even coverage. The product I'm using to apply the glitter is called Aline's Original Tack-It Over and Over. It's meant to be a temporary and repositionable adhesive, so when it completely dries, it remains sticky. I thinned it out with a bit of water and used a paintbrush to apply it all over the surface of the tumbler. You can find links to everything I'm using in the description of this video. Once I had the entire tumbler coated, I let it dry for about an hour, and the tumbler was sticky to the touch but not wet. Then I put a piece of parchment paper under the tumbler and shook some holographic blue glitter all over the surface. Because the glue is sticky, you can use your finger to kind of buff the glitter right into it, which will really bring out that holographic laser effect. There will be quite a bit of excess glitter buildup, which you can use a dry bristled brush to just scrape away, and that will leave behind only the glitter that is stuck in the glue. It was a little bit patchy after the first coat, so I did one more round of the Tack-It and glitter to get a super sparkly finish. Finally, I applied a layer of UV resin to seal everything in, smooth out the texture, and make a nice shiny top coat to protect the glitter coating. I have a separate video that is an in-depth tutorial of this step of the project, so if you're interested in learning more about the Tack-It method, you can check out that video for more details. Okay, this is where things go a little bananas, but hang with me. So typically with my rhinestone projects, if I do any kind of design, I cut it out of vinyl using my Cricut machine and then rhinestone right over it. I wanted a continuous mermaid scale pattern that connects all the way around the tumbler. So I measured out the circumference of the tumbler and the length from top to bottom, then created a Canva file with those measurements. I searched mermaid scale in the Elements tab and found this image, which I duplicated a few times and positioned in a way that would make it a continuous pattern. And I actually don't think there's anything wrong with the way I made this file. I think it could have been great, and it should have fit perfectly around my tumbler. So I saved my design and uploaded it to Cricut Design Space, cut it out of white vinyl, and picked it up with transfer tape. And when I applied it to the tumbler, honestly, the sizing seemed good. Like I said, I don't think my cut file was the issue, but somehow I just could not, for the life of me, line it up properly. I think the shape of the mermaid scales on the pattern just made the vinyl almost stretchy like an accordion, and it was just so elastic that when I tried to line it up, some areas just kept stretching. I don't even really know how to explain it, but the point is I could not get it to line up like I hoped it would. So I ended up kind of squishing the parts that weren't sitting right and put a crease in them so that they kind of looked right. But most importantly, the rows at the top were lined up properly. My first couple rows of scales looked good and they met up in a nice continuous line. We'll come back to this in a sec. My favorite glue for rhinestone projects is called Gem Tack by the brand Beacon, and I transfer it into a precision tip bottle. I like to use a wax pencil that can be sharpened to pick up and place my rhinestones. And for this project, I used Crystal AB rhinestones in the size SS12. As always, there are links to everything in the description. Okay, back to the gong show. So at this point, I decided it probably wasn't a good idea to rhinestone over top of the vinyl because some places were wonky and had creases. But because my first couple rows do line up perfectly and I know the spacing will work out for the rhinestones if I follow them, I decided I could just use the vinyl as a guideline for where to place the rhinestones, but not actually put the rhinestones on the vinyl. So I started placing a rhinestone at the top of each scale, and I did this all the way around the tumbler. Then I carefully peeled back the vinyl and placed a rhinestone at the bottom of each scale where the lines of the next row of scales intersect. Then I applied curved lines of glue connecting each of the lower stones to the one in the first row and applied 2 more rhinestones on each side to connect them. And that looked pretty good, so I continued along the tumbler, carefully peeling back the vinyl and applying the bottom stones where the lines intersect, then connecting them to the top stones. And because the spacing is the same all the way around, each scale has the same number of rhinestones in it. So I just followed the pattern until the whole first row was complete. And it looked great. The spacing was perfectly even and I knew exactly how many stones were going to fit into each scale. Then I trimmed off the excess vinyl to get it out of my way and moved on to the next row. I got into a groove of placing 2 dots under the bottom middle stone of each scale, adding the next bottom stone, and then filling in those 2 gaps with 2 more stones. I kept using the vinyl as a guideline to keep the height of each scale consistent. Once I got this pattern figured out, it was actually very easy to do despite how complicated the finished pattern looks. And because my first row had proper spacing, I was able to keep the entire tumbler consistent despite the fact that my vinyl wasn't perfect to begin with. And I actually really like that I didn't end up putting the stones over the vinyl because I think the edges of the vinyl would have been a bit visible. And I think the rhinestones look really pretty by themselves. I got comfortable with the spacing of everything after a while, so I decided to just peel off the remaining vinyl and do the rest freehand. When I got to the bottom, I did the last few rows all at once, so I could make sure I spaced everything to fit perfectly down to the bottom edge of the tumbler. If I had continued the rows one by one, I might have ended up with a small gap at the bottom. But doing the last few all at once allows me to leave the tiniest amount of space between the stones in order to squeeze everything in nice and tight. Even though I put a lot of effort into making sure each scale was curved along the bottom and not pointed, it did end up looking a little more like diamonds than scales in the end. But either way, I think the finished pattern looks so beautiful, and the holographic blue glitter glistening between the crystals is just gorgeous. It also has the bonus feature of being super grippy, so hopefully that will help me to not drop my coffee. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel and leave a comment letting me know what you would like to see next. See you later!